Hello and welcome to Special Collections at the Royal College of Art. My name's Neil Parkinson and I'm the Archives and Collections Manager here. And today I'm going to show you a few books from our Colour Reference Library, which is one of the largest collections of books about colour anywhere in the world, now approaching nearly 2,000 different titles, which was put together by two of our alumni and came to the college in the late 1970s. It's an extraordinarily rich resource that covers every possible aspect of colour theory, colour studies, colour application. There's lots of material about the psychology of colour, the symbolism of colour, the history of pigments, and the application of colour in different fields. But today I'm just going to show you a small number of books about how colour has been organised and explained and classified and structured historically, because there have been numerous different attempts over the last few centuries to put all colours in order and show how they relate to each other, particularly in a way that can be used as a tool, as an explanatory guide by artists and designers. The first example I have is Moses Harris's Natural System of Colours. And this is one of the rarest and most precious books in the history of colour. Moses Harris was an 18th century botanist, lepidopterist, entomologist. He was really obsessed with beetles and bugs and butterflies. And he was fascinated by the challenges of trying to capture them in all of their natural colours. So he developed an interest in colour theory, and he adapted Isaac Newton's explanation of how we see colour and how colour comes from sunlight, from white light, and turned it into a practical guide for artists. And in Natural System of Colours, he explains how you can basically mix all the colours you ever need from three primary colours of red, blue, and yellow. And he included these two extraordinarily lovely colour wheels in his book. So one for primary colours and one for secondary colours. And he's broken up the colour wheel into all of these different main colour families and then different sort of gradations of how dark or light the different colours are. And these colours were particularly useful for representing the natural world as they kind of get murkier and more green and brown. But this was it seems simple to us now because this is quite similar to a lot of the colour theory that we learn even at primary school. But it was quite radical and fundamental for its day to really explain how colours relate to each other and how easily we can mix multiple colours from a very sort of basic palette. So that was quite practical. But then a few years later, this publication came out called Werner's Nomenclature of Colours. And this was an attempt to organise colour and to sort of map it and name it. This was produced by a Scottish painter called Patrick Syme, and he adapted the system of a famous German geologist, Werner, and showed how all the colours of the natural world could be basically fitted into grids. And he divided up the colours into these sort of colour families. So there's a page of whites, there's a page of blacks, there's a page of greys, and then there are pages for yellows and reds and orange and all of those obvious colours. But if you look at the grid that the colours are arranged in, there's lots of things going on. Each colour has a number, it has a name, there's a colour sample that has been pasted in. These were all individually hand-painted on sheets, cut up into squares, and then the squares were meticulously pasted into the grids for each edition. And then you've got three columns that show where you can find that colour in the natural world, using Linnaeus's classic sort of kingdoms of the natural world. So there's animal, vegetable, and mineral equivalents for each. So you can see, for instance, number 4 here, yellowish white. The animal equivalent is the egret, and the vegetable equivalent is the hawthorn blossom, and the mineral equivalent is chalk. And you start to get all these extraordinary sort of examples that Patrick Syme sourced. So you've got a particular white, for instance, number 7, skimmed milk white. The animal equivalent is the white of the human eyeballs. And this was quite an influential little book, and Darwin took a copy with him on the Beagle and was able to record the specific colours of particular sort of animal and plant specimens that he encountered by referring to this book and cross-referencing and saying, where exactly which colour particular animals or fish or whatever would have been. By the time we get to the 20th century, colour has become much more of a science. There's a lot of chemical industries trying to come up with more and more artificial colours. It was becoming an ever more colourful world. There was a real need to be kind of more precise and specific about the different varieties of colour that you could produce. There were competing systems to try and do that, and one of the most popular was the so-called Munsell system. Munsell was an art educator in the US, and he came up with this very quite dry and precise and forensic system where each variant of each colour could be specified using a system of numbers and letters. He ordered colours into sort of 5 principal colours and 5 hybrid colours, and then he put them in this 3-dimensional model that he called a Munsell tree, where each variant of each colour could be expressed by referring to 3 different coordinates. It's hue, value, and chroma. So the hue is which colour it is, whether it's red or green or blue. The value is how much white or black is there in that colour, how light or dark is it, and then the chroma is the kind of richness, the saturation of the colour. And this is a cross-section of his model with 2 colours in opposition, and you can see lots of different variants. Even though there are only 2 colours on this page, there are lots of different variants. So the black and white running from top to bottom, this was the trunk of his supposed Munsell tree, and the different variants of the colours coming out are the branches of that tree. It was a very sophisticated way of expressing like minor differences from one variant of one colour to the next. But it was a very, as I say, it was a very dry, scientific way of expressing something as vital as colour. And so there were other attempts at organising all the colours. Different regulatory bodies sprang up in different countries to try and sort of take a national approach to colour. And in the UK, we had the British Colour Council, which was very active from the 30s to the 60s, which produced these sorts of guides that essentially encapsulated a whole sort of approved series of colours. Again, a bit like Werner's Nomenclature, each colour had its own number and its own name, and then a sample for people to compare and see in the flesh exactly what colour was being described. And because it was the British Colour Council, the individual names are often quite parochial and maybe don't really translate to different parts of the world. So for instance, here we've got Union Jack blue and we've got Post Office red, which again are very kind of uniquely British ways of thinking about colour that wouldn't go down so well in the US equivalent. And that's just a small selection of the many different types of things that we have in the colour reference library, which really sort of span the centuries and span all kinds of different printing techniques and all kind of different imaginative ways of getting colour theory onto the page.